Oh, muted. There we go. All right. Let me see what is going on. Oh, take that out of the picture. No reason for that to be in the picture in the video. All right. It's been a kind of an eventful, well, let's just say it's been eventful around here for the last 24 hours. We had a storm last night, and we lost electricity for a while. Listen, these are all the things that have been going on. We had a storm, lost electricity for a while. My refrigerator went up. My refrigerator side-by-side freezer has been ailing. We had to go get a new freezer. That was not coming in for a couple of weeks. So the one we have, it's not really, the freezer's kaput. It's not doing anything. And it's just been a lot of scrambling the last couple of days around here. And then we had a storm last night, took out the power for a while. And it was pretty good. Actually, the power went out before the storm hit. So it's really hot here on the East Coast of the good old USA. And the power went out before the storm hit. It just went out for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We were watching Apple TV. What were we watching? Hijack, that new series they have. Power went out. The AC was set on stun, so that kind of held for a couple hours. And then Baltimore Gas and Electric put out a thing that said, hey, it's going to be about 2 hours, so it wasn't too bad. It's been on ever since. But besides all that, before that happened, our refrigerator freezer went out. It's a Samsung. Now, it is over 10 years old, so it's not that big a deal. So we went out and bought a new one, but they can't have it for another 10 days. So it's like the stuff we have in the refrigerator, it's like, I'm not sure what we're going to do with it. Anyway, so the news right now is still centered around 10.6.7, right? That's what it seems like. It's not, people are still saying, oh, I'm having problems. Some people don't. I understand that. That's almost always the case. Let's go to the outdoor for a second. This is the backyard. Look, it just looks incredibly green. I guess, I'm not sure what the deal is, that camera. I guess it is that green. We just got a lot. I mean, it was really, really raining hard last night. And it was real windy and stuff. So, yeah, we had as a matter of fact, let me just pull this up. Let me just pull this up and I'll show you. Relay locked. What overlay is locked? Let me try this, see if this works. No, this one. This is what I want. Here we go. So this is the storm from last. This is the cleanup this morning. Here I am picking up after the storm. Last night we had a heck of a storm here. I'm using a GoPro camera. I'm actually amazed that the GoPro camera picks up audio as good as it does, the microphone system. This is an older GoPro. I think it's a 8, something like that. Strong winds last night. That was this morning that I had. Let me just mute that real quick. That was this morning. the issue I had cleaning up, of course, which was not that big a deal. Have some comments here. Our friend Spot Lewis from Philadelphia. Good morning. Cup of coffee ready? Please. Coffee, coffee, coffee. And then I had a problem with coffee this week. Not only did I have refrigerator problems, and we had a storm last night, I also had issue with my coffee. So the coffee I get is from New York. And first off, they didn't ship it when they were supposed to. They shipped it a week after they were supposed to ship it. So I messaged them, said, what's going on? Oh, we're going to ship it today. We had some problems, whatever. And then I get the coffee, and I had to order 4 1-pound bags because I get free shipping. And they weren't 1 pound. They were 12 ounces. I picked them up, and I said, these really feel light. So I checked them out, put them on my digital scale. They were 12.9 ounces. All of them, all 4 of them. So I contacted the company, and they apologized, and I showed them the scale, and I showed them the bag that was mostly empty, the sealed bag. So they're going to send me out 4 new pounds on Monday, but still, that's something else that happened this week. A lot of stuff. And then 1067, Final Cut Pro 1067. I'm going to tell you the story about that. We got another comment here. Good morning from the beach in Florida, Space Coast. Absolutely. I'm sure it's hot down there. It's been really hot up here. Very, very hot up here. So here's the deal with 1067. Not nobody. Some people are not having problems. Is that unusual? No, it's not. It is not unusual. It is not unusual for some people to not have problems when there are problems that are widely reported by a lot of high-profile Final Cut pros, okay? A lot of high-profile Final Cut pros. So if you're one of the people who say, oh, Final Cut Pro is fine, it's working fine for me, it's not the way it works. Just because it works fine for you does not mean there's not bugs. If people are finding bugs on this kind of a scale, there definitely are bugs. Or it could be Mac OS. I don't know. But there are definitely bugs. So let's go here. Let me show you what I put together here. This is a little Final Cut Pro 10.6.7 reports. And my recommendation is do not update to Final Cut Pro 10.6.7. I don't know if you have or not already. I'll tell you what I did in a minute. But many reports of crashes and bugs. So I started off with this. I'm not going to update to Final Cut 10.6.7 because of all the bug reports. Do not update. But number 1 is report the bugs to the Final Cut Pro team. All right? Number 1 issue. If you don't report it to the team, they really can't do anything about it, can they? I mean, if they don't get the bug reports, they can't do anything about it. So in order to report it, just go to fcpx.tv, go to the main page here, and right here, you can click on this. It says bug reports or feedback to the Final Cut Pro team here, and you click on that, it takes you right to the page. Takes you right to the page, fill it out, select feedback type, bug report, right there. There you go, and make your comments and let them know what's going on. That's what you want to do. But anyway, so I've compiled this Final Cut Pro bug reports. These are just reports that I've seen in public forums and on Twitter. So I want to show them to you. But the main thing is the Final Cut Pro team needs the information in order to fix it. Okay, so send them the bug reports. They request it. So here's Final Cut Bro, do not update. He did a video, do not update. He says, worked on a pretty complex timeline all day, it crashed 16 times. This guy says, strenuously avoiding updating to Final Cut Pro 10.6.7 like my life depends on it. Thanks for the tip-off. Chris Hawking, 10.6, pretty buggy. Chris Hawking, Alex 4D, Matthew O'Brien, there's Dylan Gate, Thomas Grove Carter. All these people, Arctic Whiteness. These are all the people that are reporting on bugs. This is just a sample. But I wanted to put this out there for people. If you're saying there's no bugs in Final Cut Pro 10.6.7, that's not accurate. There are bugs. Something is wrong, and I expect 10.6.8 will be out very, very quickly. Oh, that's interesting. What does this say? Final Cut Pro working fine on my 16-inch M1 MacBook Pro, buggy on my new M2 Studio. Or do they both have the same Mac OS? Do they both have the same Mac OS, Eric? That would be interesting. The other thing is it 13? What is Mac OS working on? Got this Mac. What am I on? I think I'm on 13.1. Yeah, I'm on 13.1. I haven't updated for a long time because it's been too much nonsense. So I think 13.5 just came out, and I think that's also causing problems with some people. So, you know, I'm holding back. I am holding back. Number one thing you do, make a copy of Final Cut Pro before you update it. And if you have any important libraries, make a copy of those as well, because 10.6.7, Final Cut Pro 10.6.7 requires you to update your library. Once the library is updated, you cannot go back to a prior version. Now, in the past, when Final Cut Pro said, do you want to update your library, they made a copy in the background in your movies folder for you. I don't know if they're still doing that, but they did it. They did at one point. They made a copy of the library in the background so you could revert to it. But I don't trust that. So I'm still on 10.6.6. I have copies. I have 10.6.0, 10.6.1, 10.6.2, 10.6.3, 10.6.4, 10.6.5, and 10.6.6. I've made copies and I label them. Now, I wanted a copy of 10.6.7 because I want to have a copy for the future. If somebody wants to go back and look at why 10.6.7 was so buggy, I wanted a copy. So once again, I made a copy of 10.6.6, made sure I had 2 copies of that in 2 different hard drives, and then I updated to Final Cut Pro 10.6.7 via the App Store. But I'm not using it. I just downloaded it. I labeled it 10.6.7, but I am not using it right now anyway. Eric says they mirror each other. So let me know, people that are watching, let's see who's having problems with 10.6.7 and who's not. You know, I don't know the process that the team has. If somebody says, oh, I'm not having any problems, well, okay, with a lot of variables, Intel versus M1, Intel versus M2, which version of Mac OS, which version of Final Cut, did you update the Pro video formats? That's also been updated. I haven't even updated compressor or motion. I think they're on the old versions. I haven't updated them. I only updated to 10.6.6 when it came out in May. But I don't use motion and compressor that much. As a matter of fact, I haven't even updated Logic Pro because it's running fine. There's nothing that I need in it, so I didn't update Logic Pro either because I don't want to. There's been a lot of, you know, Mac OS, Final Cut Pro, some other things. I'm a little shy about pressing that update button immediately, especially with Final Cut because I use it all the time. Logic as well. So I'm still running 10.6.6. I just did a little video, that video of the storm. I just did that in Final Cut Pro. This morning, I went out and filmed with my GoPro. I have a GoPro. I have a neck structure, and it connects on there, and I can just film what's in front of me and stuff. That's why I did the cleanup video with. So, what else is happening? Well, we heard from we heard from Future Media Concepts. How many months have I been saying that the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit is going to return to Cupertino? Probably for 6 months now I've been saying that. And I'm not saying that because anybody told me that. I'm saying that based on the performance of the Worldwide Creative Summit from last year. They canceled all the overseas dates, the European dates. They only did 5 in the United States, and I don't think they were that. I don't think the numbers were there that they were expecting. So my prediction was that they were going to return to Cupertino. Lo and behold, they're returning to Cupertino. The Final Cut Pro Creative Summit is indeed returning to Cupertino this year, which is fantastic. Don't you think? It is for me. Let me just pull this up. So if you ever wondered what the Creative Summit was like, I did a documentary. It's like 42 minutes, I think. 42 minutes. And let me just pull this up. Here we go. This is just a little clip of it. This is us going to Cupertino. This is 2016, actually. This is 2016. And I'm going to, here's Alex, Stupid Raisins, Dylan, and Pierre, I think his name is. They were on the bus going somewhere. I forget where we're going there, somewhere. Oh, we're going to the to One Infinite Loop. It's a fantastic. This is an expo night that they had. I interview people at the expo night. There's like 150, 200 people there. I interview different people. And this is a social mixer, Final Cut Pro Creative Summit 2019. This is the hotel that we stayed at, the Juniper Hotel. They had a bar in the hotel, so we just went in there and we just did all kind of stuff. Sometimes I streamed live, sometimes I just filmed. But there's the opening keynote. We have a keynote. You people, usually some kind of fantastic speakers and stuff. Don't forget, give me the thumbs up. You like the video. Eric says they mirror each other. His MacBook and the Mac Studio mirror each other. Sorry, I'm late. That's fine. That's fine. I was late myself this morning. So what I want to know this morning is, how is 10.6.7 behaving for everybody? I don't want to know two things. Is 10.6.7 behaving for everybody? And who's thinking about going to the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit? That's what I'd like to know. Let me see this. I'm going to check this over here. There we go. Thank you for the thumbs up. Appreciate it. So this is a good question. Well, let's do this. Let's do Eric first. Thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. The summit is good because it means Final Cut Pro won't be the end of life. Yeah, I don't think Apple would agree to do the summit if there's nothing, if they're planning on not developing it. I doubt that. So thank you. Appreciate the thumbs up. Why is Apple so unnecessarily secretive? Randy Ubelo spoke at events. Now the Final Cut Pro team seems to have contact with a very small group of users who may not be fully representative of the clientele. So I've said this multiple times. I understand that the Final Cut Pro team says, they got a lot of complaints about Hollywood. So they see this Hollywood group of people, but that doesn't affect the other 5 million users. They tell us very little, if anything. They just don't say anything. The meetings that they've had, I've confirmed that the meetings took place. I don't know how many, don't know the subject matter, and the rest of the Final Cut Pro community doesn't know anything because of the secrecy. And I think some of it's Apple corporate. Look, they have betas for Safari. They have betas for Mac OS. They have betas for iOS. They have all kinds of betas. They have betas for the new operating system coming out in September. But it doesn't seem like, based on 10.6.7, that the beta for Final Cut Pro is wide enough. It's not getting enough people, at least according to what I can see, it's not getting enough people to catch all the bugs that are there. Our friend Yari says, 10.6.7 behaving fine here. I always reset the preferences if there's a library update version of the software. Always a good idea. That's an excellent idea. Reset the preferences, although if I have problems, I'll reset the preferences. If I don't have problems, I usually don't do that. But resetting the preferences is a good idea, especially if there's a library update, like Yari said. Absolutely. Now, I understand some people are not having problems. Obviously, there's differences between the people that are having problems because there's too many people that are reporting problems. So I'm waiting for 10.6.8, and I will not jump on that update when it comes out. I am not going to jump on that update because I'm just going to wait for it to get some reports back that it's not causing problems. I mean, there's always some problems with updates, but there's too many problems with this update. And besides, 10.6.6 is working fine for me. That's the other criteria. If I was waiting for a bug fix in Final Cut Pro and it came in 10.6.7, I'd be much more apt to update to it. But I have not. 10.6.6 is doing fine. So we have resetting the preferences. Is that the same as trashing preferences? Absolutely. So all you do is hold the Option and Command key down when you launch Final Cut Pro, and it'll reset or trash the Final Cut Pro preferences. Now, in the past, Final Cut Pro put a copy of your old preferences on your desktop, and they might do it now in the Movies folder. But Final Cut Pro preferences are not that sophisticated. They're very basic, very minimal. So you have to do some reset a few things. That's not too, it's not too bad. But I don't know if they still make a copy of the preferences for you when you trash your preferences. I don't know, but they used to. They used to place them on the desktop or in your Movies folder. Let me go over here and look. I haven't trashed my preferences for a while, but that's very good advice from Yari. So let's go over here and look. You know what? Let me go to my MacBook Pro. Cancel. Go over here. I don't want to screen share. Oh, there we go. Probe sure users, Richard. Let me just go there and see. I'm pretty sure I had some. Yeah. So let me pull this up. Let me just do this. In the past, in the past, this is what, in the past when you, let me go over here. In the past, when you trash your preferences, Apple Final Cut dumps this video apps diagnostics with the date on it. This one is in my movies folder. Okay? Let me pull myself down here. This one is in my movies folder, but it dumps your preferences in here, your old preferences, so you could always copy and paste these back if you had something specific. That's the main thing, is the preferences. It also has projects. It also has system log, system profile, Windows layout, workspaces. So there's all my window layouts, my old ones. So when I did trash preferences, Final Cut put a copy of my old ones before they deleted them. Let's see what this says. Matthew says, hey, Richard, happy Saturday. Is the summit something Apple puts on, or just something that allows at their facilities? So the company that puts it on is Future Media Concepts. I'm a partner with Future Media Concepts, and this time, Apple, in 2019, the last in-person Creative Summit, the cost was $900 to $1,000 for all 3 days, and that included a couple of lunches, bagels and stuff in the morning, and the lobbies. It included sessions, 2 or 3 days of sessions, 1-hour sessions from all kinds of specialists, and it included Apple Day, where we go to the Apple campus. In the past, it was one infinite loop. This time, we used to visit there. This time, I think Apple is subsidizing the Creative Summit, and they've brought the price down from $1,000 to $299. Now, I think Apple is subsidizing that cost because it's a lot of money, running a hotel and getting food and things, and buses and all that. So this time, Apple is, from what I understand, they're sponsoring some of the cost, or taking care of some of the costs. So that's really good. So your price is now $299 versus $1,000, which it was in the past. Something else that's different this time is it says we're going to start with a full day at Apple Campus and then 2 days of sessions. The expo happens at night when all the vendors are there. So we never spent a full day at Apple before. We only spent partial days at Apple. And the other thing is, I think we're going to the Spaceship Campus, hopefully. We were supposed to the last couple of times. We never got there yet. We went to the Spaceship Campus Gift Center, but we never got to the actual Spaceship Campus. So this time, I think we are going to the Spaceship Campus. They haven't said that yet, but it says a full day at Apple. I don't think we could do a full day at One Infinite Loop. I don't think so. So I'm going to say that I'm going to presume it's a full day at the Apple Spaceship Campus, which is really, really cool. Very, very cool. All right, what do we have to talk about? What else? 10.6.7, the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. Look, it's the end of July, right? So, therefore, let me just see something here. Where is here we go. Notes. Where's my notes? So one of the other things that happened unfortunately, it happened the same week that Apple put out 10.6.7, which was supposed to be a bug fix. And it maybe fixed some bugs, but it introduced new bugs. DaVinci Resolve 18.5 came out of beta. And is available, the studio version I'm talking about, and is now available with over 100 new features. DaVinci Resolve 18.5, over 100 new features. That's not counting bug fixes. That's not counting enhancements. It's not counting speed improvements. Over 100 new features. At the same time, we get Final Cut Pro 10.6.7, which is, to some, very buggy. Very buggy. So, with no new features. The comparison between the two is just absolutely incredible as far as the pace of development. I sure hope that the Final Cut Pro team is working on something brand new from the ground up that we're all going to go, hey, that's really cool. I'm glad you guys are working on it, but don't know. I believe the summit when it happens. I'll believe the summit when it happens. Apple has a habit of changing these things. Oh, it'll happen. It's happening. I guarantee you that. What Apple changes, Apple's not in charge of the summit, but Apple, they have to work with Apple, obviously, in order to get to the Apple campus. The summit can exist without going to Apple campus, but it's not as special. So Apple doesn't put it on, but they're subsidizing, from what I understand, and they very well should, the price of the ticket this time. Typically, they have average 150 people, plus trainers that are teaching, plus the staff at Future Media Concepts, plus me. I'll be there, reporting and stuff and filming behind the scenes. So they have 150, 160, 170 people. Has Apple ever had any big updates in November, December? Absolutely. Absolutely. Apple has announced at the Creative Summit in 2016, thank you for the thumbs up, appreciate it. Apple announced Final Cut Pro 10.3. The day before, less than 24 hours before the Creative Summit. So at the Creative Summit, we got to see the brand new version, less than 1 day old version of Final Cut Pro. 2016, they introduced 10.3 at the Summit. 2017, they introduced 10.4. Thank you for the thumbs up. In 2017, they introduced 10.4 at the Creative Summit. In 2018, they introduced Final Cut Pro 10.4.4, big update, new features at the Creative Summit. It didn't come out until December, but they debuted it at the Creative Summit and allowed us to show it and post on social media and the whole 9 yards. So that's 3 times major releases of Final Cut Pro were released around the Creative Summit. Now in 2019, nothing. I was expecting 10.5, did not happen. There was nothing new for Final Cut in 2019. So usually there's something new. Are you expecting 10.7 to be the new version? Thank you for the thumbs up, appreciate it. Are you expecting 10.7 to be the new version of Final Cut, or are you expecting Final Cut Pro 11? Final Cut Pro 11 is coming at some point, right? It is. And it would not surprise me if they charge for Final Cut Pro 11. First, it would not surprise me, and it would not bother me, because we've got 12 years of Final Cut Pro 10 updates for free. If they have to do a new version of Final Cut Pro 11, and they have to charge for it, that's fine. Based on their history, we got 10 years of free updates for Final Cut Pro 10. What else do we have here? Let's just see, check on a couple of other things. I'm going to check on, let me see what's going on here. That's that. Oh, I don't see much happening there. One of the things is summertime's pretty dead for normally for any updates for Final Cut. But I am expecting 10.6.8. I would think that the Final Cut Pro team has identified bugs in 10.6.7 because there's too many people that have seen them. So I suspect they've identified them, and a fix is coming. A fix is coming. So hopefully 10.6.8 will take care of that. I wouldn't mind a little surprise in 10.6.8 to have something special there. That would be fine as well. Yeah, the Creative Summit is very cool. It's the biggest Final Cut Pro event in the world every year. There's no event that's bigger that's concentrated just on Final Cut Pro. Now, they have announced, let me just check one thing and see if there's any more announcements since this morning. Just real quick. Don't say that. Let me just see something here real quick. Just checking. Oh, got that. Here we go. Come on now. Turn it off. So it says a couple of things we had found out. The sessions will include Final Cut Pro, of course. It's called the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. Motion. And there'll be sessions on Final Cut Junior, Final Cut for iPad. That's what's been announced so far. They've had other sessions that are not specifically, that are Final Cut related sometimes. They're likely going to have case studies, people who have done films, major Hollywood films or major films or documentaries. They'll have a few of those, people talking about how they worked with Final Cut Pro doing a case study. They'll have that. But it says it includes Final Cut Pro, Final Cut for iPad, and Motion. Those are the three tracks. There'll be a couple Final Cut for iPads. They're not going to be, a day full. I doubt that. There's not that much to know about it if you know Final Cut. And then it says we are aiming for dates the second week of November 5th through the 10th, sometime in that week, but they haven't announced them yet. So you don't go buying airplane tickets. Don't go renting a hotel. They typically will have a hotel and book a bunch of suites at a hotel for everybody. Well, if people want to, like speakers will get in that hotel and other staff members, and I'll be staying there, and anybody else can stay there as well. And usually they get a discount rate, but it's not available yet, and we don't even know the hotel yet. 2016. 2017, 2018, 2019 have been 2016? Yeah, have been at the Juniper Hotel, which has worked out very, very well. They have lots of room there. It's a very nice, clean place. It's close to Cupertino. We get on the bus and go to in One Infinite Loop, where we go to the Spaceship Campus Visitors Center. And it's worked out very well, but they have not announced that we're going back to the Juniper yet. They said they're still looking at a venue. So that'll be interesting. So to answer your questions, yes, they have had big updates in November and December. Have you received feedback and impressions about Final Cut for iPad? I cannot get around the annoying subscription system. I can't either. Well, for one thing, there's 40 things that Final Cut for iPad doesn't have that Final Cut Pro has. It's definitely a step down from Final Cut Pro. It's definitely a step down. And I presume that's going to be maintained. They're not going to be able to do what Final Cut on the Mac can do because of several reasons, but it looks like a pretty cool little app. I use LumaFusion myself. I like LumaFusion a lot. I believe Final Cut for iPad hype lasted about as long as the hype for the new Threads app. Yeah, that didn't last very long, did it? Threads. I'm going to just presume that Final Cut for iPad perhaps wasn't as big a deal as some people maybe thought in Apple. I don't know. We don't know the numbers. We haven't had numbers for Final Cut for Mac, but it's probably 4 or 5 million. I imagine people Final Cut for iPad, maybe thousands, maybe a few tens of thousands. So I don't think there's any comparison between the two. I played with it at the Apple Store. It seems very useful for mobile productions, such as spot news and breaking news. Absolutely. I want to pay once, and I'm willing to opt to pay for updates. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that scenario. I don't like the subscription. I don't like Apple getting involved with subscriptions. Look, they give away a dozen apps for free. Keynote, free. QuickTime, free. Safari, free. macOS, free. iOS, free. tvOS, free. All these apps, Notes, I use Notes all the time. They give it away for free. And now they're going to start a subscription? Doesn't make sense. Apple's the richest company by market capitalization in the world. Give us an option to pay once for it. I don't mind paying for it. Subscription? Nah. If I get a new iPad, which I will at some point, I'm not going to get Final Cut on iPad. It's too limiting. It has too many things that I need. It's missing too many things that I need that I have on Final Cut for iPad. I have a list of 40 things that it needs. Now, it's a fine app. It looks very, very cool. If you don't want to get the full version of Final Cut, get Final Cut for iPad. There's nothing wrong with that. It absolutely is a cool little app. I don't want to give you the impression that I don't think it's cool. So here's the list that I have. Let's check something real quick. There, I guess the birds were all in the shade somewhere. No birds. Well, I guess the bird feeder's empty too. It looks like there's no suet in there. So that could be a factor. But anyway, let's see what we have here. Desktop, here we go. So feature parity checklist, Final Cut Pro versus Final Cut for iPad. This is our Facebook group, Final Cut for iPad tips and tricks. This is specifically Final Cut for iPad. This is not about Final Cut. Just search for it on Facebook, Final Cut for iPad tips and tricks. Differences between Final Cut Pro and Final Cut for iPad. And I'll update the list as I go along. These are the missing features that Final Cut for iPad does not have. No editing off external drives, subscription only. No white balance, no stabilization, no color board, color wheels, color curves, use saturation curves. These are all things that professionals need. I'm sorry, they need these. One scope at a time. You can't have multiple scopes open. No audio sub-rolls and only 3 audio rolls. Only 1 video roll. No optimized media. Can't import ranges from connected SD cards. Anyway, there's a whole list of things. 40, I think I have 40 things. Vlog processing is problematic. No speed ramping, no extensions, no custom LUTs. Dozens of missing Final Cut Pro titles, transitions, generators, and effects. No comparison viewer. No custom browser layouts. No timeline index. No info inspector. There's 40 things there that Final Cut for iPad does not have. The thing is, I just want you to know that going in. Now, you can try it out. $4.99, no big deal. One for a month. That's fine. You know, and it looks like it's a cool little app. So if you're in between iMovie and going to the full version of Final Cut, this is a nice interim step between iMovie and the full professional version of Final Cut Pro. But there's lots of things missing in this version, Final Cut for iPad, that we're used to in Final Cut Pro. Final Cut for iPad was actually a very big deal until the word subscription crept into the picture. Yeah, that's one of the things that I don't like. I don't think Apple needs to go into subscriptions. I mean, they have subscriptions for services. Don't get me wrong. They do Apple TV and Apple Music and News Plus and all that, but not for apps. Not for apps. So I don't think it's Final Cut for iPad is fine for mobile, but I use my MacBook Pro for mobile as well, and I'm used to it, and it has all the full features that I need. So either way, if you want to edit on Final Cut for iPad, that's fine, but it's limited compared to what Final Cut for the Mac can do. Just be aware of that. But like I said, you're only $4.99, you get a month free, and you got $4.99. It's completely fine. If it suits you, that's fine. I used LumaFusion at NAB this year on my phone. So LumaFusion works on the iPad, older iPads. I have an older iPad Air that LumaFusion works fine on. It works on my phone. Final Cut for iPad does not work on a phone. It works on Android devices. Final Cut for iPad does not work on Android devices. It works on Chromebooks. Final Cut for iPad does not work on Chromebooks. Final Cut for iPad only works on one device. I mean, I was surprised at how effective it was to edit a quick video with LumaFusion on my iPhone at NAB. It was very, very cool. I really like LumaFusion a lot. LumaFusion's got things I wish Final Cut Pro had. It's got a magnetic timeline, but it called it enhanced magnetic timeline. Not only do they have a magnetic timeline, but you can lock things in LumaFusion. You can click on one of the layers and lock it so it disconnects from the primary magnetic timeline. Under the viewer window, it has a film strip that shows you your entire timeline, no matter what zoom level you are in the main timeline. It has an audio mixer. We've been talking about an audio mixer in Final Cut Pro for a long time. It's still not there. I really hope the Final Cut Pro team has something up their sleeves, something new, a new version of Final Cut. That's what I'm hoping for. But anyway, I will be back. You know, there's been a lot of talk about transcriptions and stuff, transcription apps. I use Descript. I use Resolve Beta 18.5. I use Mac Whisper, and I use Captionator inside of Final Cut. Those are the four that I use. Between one or two of them, I get my captions done. So I like those for Final Cut, all of them. But Final Cut still doesn't have automatic captions or text-based editing. So still doesn't have it. Those are my four favorite. Descript, Resolve 18.5, Studio, you got to have the Studio version, Mac Whisper, and Captionator. Those are the four that I like. You don't need all four, obviously. You can get by with one or two of those, but you don't have to pay hourly for transcriptions anymore. One thing I'll say about Descript, it has the best audio editor I've ever seen. If not for that audio editor, I would drop my subscription to Descript because I get captions other places now. I originally got it for captions. Now I don't. I have other places to go. Oh, Lumberjack Systems is a very, very, very cool application for doing transcripts and more. Text-based editing in Final Cut Pro, and they've been doing it for a long time, so they know Final Cut Pro inside and out. And they have an app on the App Store now. You can buy it outright. It's actually a full-fledged NLE. And, of course, it has auto captions, and it's text-based editing and the whole 9 yards. Just go to Lumberjack Systems, and they have a 52-week or 30-day free trial. So you can actually try it out. You can subscribe per month which is, I don't mind paying third-party developers that I want to support subscriptions. Apple doesn't need to have subscriptions. Third-party developers, I support a lot of them. iMovie for iPhone is very good for quick basic editing. A major weakness is the font package and its lack of parameters. Great points, Darius. That's great point. Darius News. Yeah, Final Cut works on the iPhone, but LumaFusion is a full-featured NLE that works on the iPhone. And you would think that it'd be difficult to work with an NLE on an iPhone, and it's once you get used to it and learn how everything, it has all the features that the iPad version has, just in perhaps different places. So, anyway, I expect to hear more news about the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. I expect to hear the actual dates. And I'm going to presume, since they said the second week of November, the 5th through the 10th, the 5th is a Sunday. They're not going to start on a Sunday. I doubt that. So I'm going to presume it's going to be Saturday, Friday, Thursday. That's going backwards. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thursday, Apple Day. Friday, Saturday, sessions all day, including Final Cut for iPad, Final Cut Pro sessions, and motion sessions. Now, it would make sense if there's a new version of Final Cut Pro out right before the Creative Summit or at the Creative Summit. That makes it more exciting. But if there's not, I still want there to be a Creative Summit. I really missed it in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Yes, they had virtual ones. The virtual ones, not the same. That's one of the reasons that I did the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit documentary. Right? Yes, it is. So don't forget to subscribe over there at YouTube. Click the notification bell. Thumbs up are always appreciated. It makes a difference. It makes a difference. It's nice to know that people appreciate it. And I'm going to get out of here. I got some things to do around locally in Carroll County and visiting this area. I'm going to do some filming today. I'm not sure which event I'm going to go to. I'm going to go to one of two. But I'll be back during the week. If there's an announcement about the Creative Summit, I'll come back. I'll let you know the exact dates, the venue, maybe some of the lineup that we're going to have, some of the special things. Thank you for the thumbs up. Appreciate it. It's always appreciated. I mean, you'll have a lot of the same characters there, but the neat thing is, in the past, we've met in the lobby in the mornings. We have coffee across the courtyard together. Some have his lunch together. We have dinners together. And it's all Final Cut Pro and Motion, mostly Final Cut Pro. It's not the Motion Creative Summit. It's the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. Mostly Final Cut Pro, 80%, 85%. Now we got Final Cut for iPad. There'll be one or two sessions, I imagine, on that. Maybe three. Don't know how popular they are. No idea. But you get to have coffee and bagels and lunches and dinners and night events and going to the bar with friends that you perhaps have seen online, like some people in the audience here. Well, myself as well. I'll be there as well. I'll be there reporting live from the Creative Summit. That's what my plans are at this point. Darius says, thanks for the chat. Good day from New Jersey. Thank you very much, Darius News. Appreciate you stopping by. We'll be back next Saturday. I'm going to switch the time to 10, the regular time to 10. This morning was 10:15 because I was caught up in some other things I had to do. But I'll figure on Saturdays, Final Cut TV and Coffee Saturdays, every Saturday. Great getting up early to catch you. Thank you very much, Ernest. I appreciate it. And I'll be in touch. If anything happens, if there's an update of 10.6, Final Cut Pro 10.6.7 comes out this week, I'll be back on. We'll talk about it. And we'll be back next Saturday. If the Creative Summit is announced, it's supposed to be announced any time now. The actual dates, some of the sessions, the location, anything else specific. It won't be 100% until August, September, but there should be some more information because people got to get airplane tickets. I mean, I do. make reservations, etc., take off work, and do all that good stuff. So stay tuned to Final Cut TV. Over there at YouTube, it's Richard Taylor TV, of course. Don't forget to subscribe over there. Don't forget to subscribe, reading the bell, thumbs up. They're always appreciated. It's really good. Tell your Final Cut Pro comrades to join us Saturday mornings and other times. And I'm going to get out of here, and thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it.